So this is a story that is notable, but it's notable for different reasons than most of the people who are reacting to it think it's notable for. One of Donald Trump's election fraud lawyers, Jenna Ellis, quit the Republican Party live on her television program yesterday. She hosts a show called The Truth on Real America's Voice. I don't know what that is either, but that's what it is. That's what it's called. And on that show yesterday, she said she's out. She's out of the Republican Party until further notice. But why is she out? Because as far as she's concerned, the Republican Party isn't crazy enough. The Republican Party isn't fighting hard enough to argue that Donald Trump actually won the 2020 election. And so she's leaving. Now, I'll explain more in a second, but let's first look at the clip.
All of them, including Ronna McDaniel, should resign now. Until they do, as of today, I am resigning from the party. I am changing my voter registration and I'm no longer a Republican until the party decides that it wants to be conservative again. Even if I stand alone for the truth, I will stand for the truth. A compromised, corrupted majority is not a majority worth being a part of. If we genuinely want to create a more perfect union, we have to stand up for our principles against the corrupted machine of self-serving politicians in Washington.
So what is this all about? Jenna Ellis is quitting because some emails leaked where a top Republican National Committee lawyer criticizes what Jenna Ellis was doing vis-a-vis election fraud with Rudy Giuliani and the whole lot of them in the November election and in the months following it. And Jenna doesn't like it. Jenna's personally insulted. There actually were some people in the Republican Party who were still Republicans, and I don't agree with them on policy, but there were some Republicans in the Republican Party that realized after the 2020 election that Joe Biden won, Donald Trump lost, that's it. And that when Jenna Ellis and Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell were going around the country, holding these hearings, flying around the country, passing COVID among themselves. Remember, Jenna got it, Rudy got it, et cetera, claiming these conspiracies about there were massive dumps in the middle of the night and there was a van with food and all of this stuff. There were some Republicans, including people like Ronna McDaniel and others in the Republican Party, who said, we look ridiculous. We're becoming an even bigger laughingstock. They would say it's just we're not looking good. They were already a laughingstock. It was becoming a bigger one. And Jenna Ellis is mad that not everybody was on board with her election conspiracy theories. And so she's quitting the Republican Party in protest. This isn't a principled and moral Republican saying the party has abandoned me. I will no longer vote for Republicans. I am going to the Democratic Party or I'm moving to the left. That's not what this is. It's someone saying the party isn't nutty enough. I'm too nutty, essentially, for the Republican Party. And so I'm leaving. And here she is in a painfully long-winded clip explaining more about why she's doing this.
So, Jenna, why would you want to stay in the Republican Party? You doesn't sound like you have a home there. And I was just passed a note that you might have an announcement to make regarding your affiliation as a Republican.
Yes, well, I also announced today that I am leaving the Republican Party until the Republican Party comes back home to conservatives. I will stand up and champion truth, conservative principles, our Declaration of Independence as America's charter, and the U.S. Constitution, but I will not stand and abide by a party that says that we have to support everything that comes under the banner of R, even though it's not conservative. For Ronna, for example, to tweet in affirmation of Pride Month, for this whole infrastructure bill, for what Mitch McConnell said about President Trump in the aftermath of the second impeachment hoax, all of these things are not conserving our principles of liberty and justice for all. They're not conserving our Constitution. So I'm not going to stand by and support a party that doesn't support my values. And if every single registered Republican who's a true conservative demands of the Republican Party.
Okay, so at some point I have to just cut it. I mean, this went on for several more minutes, not a concise explanation, but all that stuff about the Constitution and all of what she's saying, what she means is not everyone at the Republican Party is on board with my embarrassing and flaccid attempts to steal the election. And I'm mad that they thought what I was doing didn't make any sense. So the bigger story here is this going to develop into a bigger schism or rift in the Republican Party, which could damage them in 2022, which I would love. It's too early to tell. Remember that Jenna Ellis is in the pro-Trump side of the party. People like Ronna McDaniel, I guess they're sort of like Trump agnostic. I think McDaniel realizes if the party's voters are with Trump, the leadership probably needs to stick with Trump too. But she seems to realize Trump is sort of a cartoon. So unless it's really clear that the voters are abandoning Trump, I don't think this fracture in the party is going to become serious. And as you know, if you've been watching the show for the last few weeks, Republican voters are overwhelmingly with Donald Trump right now. Now, what would be interesting, this is sort of a smaller question than will the party completely crack in two. What's an interesting question to consider is whether there will be a real fight as to whether the 2022 campaigns of these Republicans up for re-election will be run on 2020 was stolen by Democrats and Joe Biden. That's one way they could run in 2022. They could run on policy. Right. Or they could run on, Democrats are communists and Joe Biden's a Marxist, and that's really, really bad. My instinct is that Trump and the national media figures are going to keep pushing the election was stolen, and that's why we need to win 2022 narrative. But I think Republicans at the local level, at least many of them, are going to go with not policy. No, they're not going to go with policy is done for this party. Local Republicans, or at least Republicans that have to focus on how they talk about the election in their district with their constituents, are going to go with communism is bad, and Democrats, gas prices and Marxism and spend, that type of thing. They've totally abandoned policy. And that would be an interesting thing to see in 2022. Do they run on the election was stolen, or do they run on we've got to stop this communism, which of course doesn't exist? I think it will be the latter. One of our sponsors is SteadyMD Primary Care, the easier and more affordable way to do primary care. And they're giving you 50% off because you are in my audience. You just answer a few questions. SteadyMD will match you with a licensed primary care physician that's tailored to your needs. You'll have a 1-hour virtual appointment and start a meaningful relationship with your new doctor. And from then on, your doctor will be available to you by text, phone, and video chat. It's not some random doctor on call. Your SteadyMD doctor has a limited number of patients. You get the attention you deserve, and they can help you with anything your primary care doc normally would. It's very cool how it works. You don't need insurance. It's just $99 a month, no other fees or copays for visits. Take the free quiz and see which doctor is a perfect fit for you. You'll get 50% off your first month when you go to steadymd.com/Pakman. No risk, no long-term commitment. The link is right underneath the video.